And we are live for a special edition of A Book and a Beverage with the one and only Natalie Kelda. Natalie, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Thank you for having me.
So, well, now that you're happy, I told you there's a hard-hitting question to start off the show.
Yeah.
So I watched today on YouTube Tasting Histories, one of my favorite shows. The guy gets recipes from whenever he can. So he made, it was actually called clouted cream, his recipe, but it's clotted cream.
Yeah.
And he said that, the people of Devon and the people of Cornwall fight over what is the proper way to prepare a scone. So which way do you eat your scone? Do you have the cream and then the jam?
I might have someone like crucify me over this, but I do the cream then jam.
And that is the Devonshire way, is that right?
I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm too far north, so hopefully I should be fine that nobody's going to come with pitchforks before the stream is over. But it's very, and it's the same thing if you're saying scone or scone. Like, I don't know what the correct way is because, yeah, people
English muffin.
It's a very sort of, it's very important.
Okay, well, the controversial questions are over. We can be absolutely ridiculous.
Wait a minute. I want to.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Not being terribly familiar with clotted cream, right? It must be much stiffer than what we consider cream.
Yeah. It's almost like it's not solid. It's a little bit softer than butter, but it's still sort of like you can just spread it onto the scone.
Okay, well that makes sense putting the jam on top then, because to me, if you're going to have cream on something, that would have to go on top just because of the density of it.
So we're all team
no, it's not like whipped cream or anything. It's almost like hard whipped cream, like if you whipped it a bit too much.
We'll have to try.
But it's really nice though, because honestly, scones are a little bit too dry for me. But then when you put a really nice thick layer of cream on it and then the jam, then they're okay.
Let me ask my wife. Hold on.
I'm not actually sure what it is because I'm originally from Denmark and we don't have clotted cream over there. Like we have lots of dairy, but I don't know what the equivalent would even be, how you would make it over there.
So according to Tasting History, he said it's you take the cream from the milk and then you do that again and you get the cream of the cream.
Ah, I see.
But yeah, it sounds wonderful. It's in my Amazon cart. I'm going to probably order it after the show and try it because I've never had it, and I need.
It's really nice. It doesn't have like you definitely have to put some sugar, like sugary like jam or something with it because it doesn't taste of a lot. It's very fatty. So, but once you put this with the sugar, then it's great.
This must be a regional thing because my wife very definitively answered cream on top.
Oh. Yeah, it is. It's very regional. It's very regional. It's one of those things that people will fight over forever.
There you go. See, our first hard-hitting question in 159 episodes, Ro.
They can't agree on what to put jam or cream on the top of a piece of bread, but they own half the world at one point. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. There's a lot of issues like that where people can't disagree on how to say stuff and what you're allowed to eat and what's not. Yeah.
So anyway, we're actually here to talk about your books.
Yes.
So you have 5 books out, is that right?
I've got the 5th one is coming in October, on October 4th. So I've not even got like a proof copy or anything yet. That's probably going to be 2 weeks away.
What's that one called?
The newest one is Rubbles of McGrath. So I've just had the cover revealed 2 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Nice. And do you have a copy of at least your first book handy, or all of them?
I have all of them. I mean, I've got some. It's turned around, so it's confusing. But I've got some in the back there.
Yep.
I was really fortunate that Dom asked me if I wanted to be in Advent of Winter, so I'm in that one.
Yeah.
That's like the only fancy hardback I have, but everything else is just paperbacks. I think everyone by now probably have seen me shout a lot about my debut, River in the Galaxy.
Yep.
So yeah, that's like it's space fantasy. So I don't know. Treasure Planet sort of it's a Disney movie, but nobody really knows about it. But it's basically Treasure Planet just set 15 years later. So it's on wooden ships flying through space. You've got mysterious dragons, like very sort of scary, weird villains and stuff like that. Sort of my version of wormholes and things like that. Yeah.
And looking at the covers, it's space pirates.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any pirates in the first one, but there are pirates later on in the series, yeah.
But you have like proper 18th century sailing ships.
Yeah, it's basically it's Age of Sail, but in space.
Oh, nice.
So I've got floating cities. I think that's probably slightly. I imagine without knowing it, I was inspired by Discworld because that's one of my all-time favorite series. It's one of the only series where I go back and read certain books. So I do have like flat disk world like cities that float in space, and then they use these basically just tall ships flying through space.
Blaming Discworld is a good idea because really your only other option is to blame narcotics. So World is probably the way to go there.
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, it did actually come to me in a dream, but that's sort of like. I have really people don't believe it, but I have really crazy dreams, and it's just the whole. I think the first 13 chapters in River in the Galaxy that was all just one dream, and then I had sort of several others set in different parts of the world. So I realized that the world sort of slowly expanded by itself, which is why there's soon going to be 5 books, but I've actually written 10 in the series.
Wow.
You've got like books just done and waiting.
Yeah. My main issue is that I can't afford to publish them very fast, so I have to sort of slow down.
How fast do you write them?
I'm a fast writer, so it takes me like 2 to 3 months to do a first draft, and because I've written over 1 million words in English by now, so it's sort of they're quite close to the finished product. Yeah.
Do you sell on Amazon or just through your website?
Website and Amazon. Nobody buys on my website because I'm in the UK and the shipping is atrocious. But
that's what I was going to ask. A 10 quid book would end up costing you like 25 by the time you get here.
Yeah, it's about double to get to the US, which is I wish I could do it some other way,
but if you mail it with some Kit Kats, I'd probably buy them anyway.
Maybe I should do that. I should buy a book and a chocolate, and then people might buy it more.
Or clotted cream.
Or clotted cream. Yeah, that might be an issue across land borders. I think dairy is usually on the list of things you can't bring.
That's why we can't have nice things, man.
Yeah.
Oh, so I just saw today that the self-published science fiction competition is open to new books starting Monday for 4th version. Have you been in this before?
I've not tried that one. I don't know if it's too fantasy. I mean, I have a hard magic system. It's like alchemic powder magic. So they do have like portals, and it's powder that makes the ships fly through space. So they infuse the sails with energy catching powders and stuff like that. But I don't know if it's sciencey enough for people. I might try. I was in SPFBO last year and had a really lovely review out of that. But yeah, I don't know.
So did they say that your story was sci-fi based in SPFBO, or were they fine with it?
I think they were fine with it. Yeah. I think it had enough fantasy with the whole wooden ships in space, I think, and maybe it was the space crocodiles. I don't know. It might have been that felt sort of fantasy enough. Yeah. But yeah, I should branch out more and and try. I think I tend to self-reject on all the competitions, so I don't really apply to many of them. It's hard when you sort of it's just what I write is quite niche in some ways. I think pretty much everyone could get something out of reading it, because it's all about the characters and about like the mental struggles they have. Like in River in the Galaxy, Merlin, his biggest struggles is really that he's got depression, because he lost his best friend to cancer a couple of years ago, and he's just not been able to sort of move past that, which I think for most people, like struggling with grief and depression is quite sort of, that's something we all know about. I think it's just that thing that I find it really hard to find compare, like titles to compare it to, because are there any other books where it's like wooden ships in space? I don't know. It tends to either then be like more sci-fi, or it's proper sort of a bit more, maybe a bit more Discworldy, where it's not so focused on traveling through space.
So how did you deal with it's not really dealing with it, I guess it's magic proof, but obviously if you have sails on a ship through space, people have to raise and lower the sails. So how is there like a bubble around this thing or something? Or do you say, I'm not going to worry about it?
Yeah, I think initially I didn't really think about it. I knew that from the dream, I knew that the wood was sort of still alive, not like sentient, but it's still breathing, it's still performing photosynthesis. I'm a biologist, so that has definitely influenced some things as well. I knew that, but then through several bits of reading comments, I realized I had to sort of actually explain it a little bit more, because people were just really struggling with it all. But what about, like, how are they not flying away off the ship? And basically the powders that they use to infuse the wood to keep it sort of keeps growing and breathing and working. It clears the air, but it also sort of creates a little bubble of like an atmosphere around the ship. So they can crawl around it on the outside of the ship for repairs, but if they get more than about 6-7 feet away from the ship, they sort of it's very limited, that atmosphere, and they fall away, and then they will just float in space and die. So yeah, it's sort of
so it's just enough.
There's a little bit of like almost science, but not really.
Just enough explanation though to keep the real sci-fi nerds at bay.
Yeah.
And make the fantasy people happy. It's like, okay, fine, let's move on. Okay.
Yeah.
So how do you like have like a notebook right by your bed? Because I have dreams as well, and I know when I wake up that I dreamt something that would have been useful, but I cannot remember it.
Yeah, so I did that when I was a kid, because I read somewhere that you could like learn to control your dreams or something when I was quite young. So I had a dream like a dream journal, because I always had the most horrendous dreams. So the reason I actually started that was to try and control them to stop. And Barry's looking at birds, by the way. He's there. So he is here for the people. I know that lots of people are mostly interested in Barry. But yeah, I used to have a nightmare, like terrible nightmares every night. I was always getting murdered in horrible ways. So I started a dream journal. And the thing is, even if you don't dream anything, you still write down that I don't remember what I dreamt. And then over time, I don't know what it does, but it rewires something in your brain. So you start remembering more. And then what you remember, you write that down, but then you write down alternate endings, how you would have liked the nightmare to end, like with you running away from the murder or not getting shot or whatever.
Yeah, not getting shot's usually good. That's usually, that would be my default, I think.
Yeah, and then once you sort of get used to writing that down, you start being able to do that in your dreams, and you start being more aware that you are dreaming. So now, if I'm having a dream where I think, oh, I can use this for a book, I will sort of almost step back and almost become like like a filmmaker, I guess, a director, and I would direct the scenes so it sort of plays out, and it'll be like fantastical worlds with dragons and swords and all sorts, but I can sort of direct and change the focus of the view so I can sort of see it like a little movie. And then I remember it when I wake up, so I take very quick notes or longer notes if I'm not working, but yeah.
Nice.
So that's weird because I've always done that, and I've always wondered, am I like awake in doing this? Am I sleeping in doing? Because I've always directed my dreams, and
Yeah.
then I never talked about it. I was like, this is weird. No one else talks about this. So
yeah, no, it's really helpful. It's really helpful to do because I think probably like 90% of what I write is just from my dreams because it's the weirdest stuff that happens. Yeah.
Well, that's great if they give, if your dreams give you plot lines and stuff too. That'd be really helpful. That'd be super helpful, actually. I'm going to go to bed right now.
It's really helpful. It does. I always feel when I've had like a really big dream, I always feel tired when I wake up though, because I do think you probably, when you're directing the dreams, you're not relaxing in the same way as if you're just having deep sleep.
Plus, it's a good excuse for naps in the middle of the day.
Yes, it is.
I'm working on my book.
I had a nap like an hour ago because I needed to be awake for this. It's only 5 p.m, but I get very tired.
And oddly, it looks sunny outside.
It's actually wild. It's been terrible weather, but it is actually sunny, which is why Barry is there. He's just enjoying it. It's been terrible weather for like the whole summer, the coldest summer I've ever experienced in the UK. But it's really nice. It's sunny. So yeah, maybe we should have more live streams, and then it'll be sunny more.
So you want to spend the sunny days inside, is what you're saying? That sounds terrible.
Oh yeah, that's true. I would sit outside, but my Wi-Fi is terrible, so you can't reach.
I didn't catch the last bit.
Oh, my Wi-Fi is terrible, so I can't sit outside and enjoy the sun while doing a live stream.
Oh, right. Okay.
So, Natalie, you said you're originally from Denmark. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So are you ever going to do your books in Danish?
My family wants me to. Like, there's only a couple of, like, they all understand English, but there's only a couple of them that can really read in it, like read a book in English, because it's quite different from, ordering pizza. So yeah, my mom especially, she really wants me to, because I wrote quite a few books in Danish before I switched, and my mom really wants me to now translate all my historical fiction that I've written in English back to Danish, because she wants to read it. So yeah, I have considered that, and I know I have a friend who's like, when are you releasing your books in Danish, because I'll sell them for you, which would be nice. But it's just time, and also audience. Denmark is tiny. There's only like 5 million people, I think. So it's a lot more limited how many people you can actually peddle your books to when there's so few that speak the language. Yeah.
How do you, aside from Amazon, how do you promote your books otherwise?
I've meant to branch out, and I've just been stuck on Twitter. It's just, I just never got around to. I've tried some of the other ones. I don't like videos, like TikTok videos where you have to edit it constantly. Mm-hmm. It's too fast for me, TikTok, I think. I'm an old person inside, I think. So yeah, I'm not good for TikTok, and Instagram has sort of turned into TikTok Lite, because it's all videos as well, which again, I'm not really. I like just being able to like post a video of Barry or whatever, and just sort of move on.
Barry doesn't look fussed about it.
No, he loves to sit there. He always sits there when if I have like work meetings or anything like that. He needs to sit where he knows everyone can see him. Yeah, he's a superstar. I think he would like me to continue the TikTok for him, but yeah.
Do you do your own website?
Yeah, I mean, I use Squarespace. It's very easy to make it look fairly okay. But yeah,
Obviously got to get back into Square. I have seen a couple of people now who have very nice Squarespace websites.
it's really easy for, like, I don't like coding. I've tried to do coding and I don't like anything to do with coding and HTML and stuff like that. So Squarespace, you just pull blocks, so like it does everything for you. So it takes. I mean, I'm lazy and I don't actually update it as much as I should, but it's really easy to change everything out.
So you're a Dane living in England. You're also a Viking reenactor.
Yeah,
It's a little on the nose.
I know, and I live like in Yorkshire, which is like part of the Danelaw. It's just, yeah.
So do you have like swords and stuff lying around?
I should have brought it actually. I've got a white Viking axe, yeah, and I've got the whole kit, reenactment kit, linen dress and everything, but it's all under my bed.
So how often do they do Viking reenactments?
I don't do it much anymore because I've become chronically ill in the last couple of years. But we used to do it pretty much every weekend in the summer, and then we would meet weekly all year round, just to do a bit of fighting and stuff like
Seems
that.
like that would be a good place to learn about or make up characters for space pirates at Viking weekends.
I don't know. Actually, I started reenactment because I was writing a Viking novel, which is one I've tried to query it many times, but I don't know if they're a bit scared about like a Viking woman who's written about a Viking woman that runs around and murders everyone. So it's a bit scary for people to sort of, I think, publish that maybe. But yeah, I started reenactment to sort of be better at writing the fighting scenes, because I was like, I don't actually know what it's like to fight with a sword. Yeah.
How do you find it? Is it a fight that lasts a long time, or is it over pretty quickly?
I used to have really good stamina. So because I'm quite small, and most of the lads that do Viking reenactment are really big. So I found out that, one, I can't fight with a sword because it's too heavy for me, so I can't move fast enough. Two, I am fast. So if I fight with like the shield and an axe, I can move away faster and I don't tire as fast. So basically, I would just run around them until they got tired, made a mistake, and then I could nail them. So yeah, I think that sort of, it informed a lot of my understanding about how to write fight scenes, especially from female perspectives, or from like characters that are smaller than their opponents.
You do the same type of thing with sailing? Do you try to get out on have you been on a big sailing type ship?
I have been. I've not really done a lot. Most of that is just, I mean, I've been on many sailing ships, but I've not sort of tried to do all the rigging and stuff like that. I mean, I'm from Denmark, so I've grown up by the beach, and my dad always had like a tiny little fishing boat. So I'm used to being on the sea. Basically grew up on the sea pretty much. But yeah, not really. I've not tried with the rigging and stuff like that. I would love to, but it's usually quite prohibitively expensive to do stuff like that.
So, Natalie, just want to ask, the book you said you had written with the Viking woman, have you published that?
No, it's I don't know if I'm allowed to say. It is currently with some small publishers that maybe want it, so we'll see.
Okay, well, let me know, because that sounds like a lot of fun, and I would love to read that.
Honestly, it's one of my best books. I really love it. I just need to find a home for it, because I can't I can't afford to both publish the fantasy and historical fiction, so I really want to find a home for that, so I can go do both at the same time. Yeah, so I'll be shouting about it if it does work out in the end. Yeah.
How long have you? When was your first book self-published?
Oh, not that long ago. March last year is when River and the Galaxy came out. So I've sort of worked quite fast. Like book number 5 is coming out soon. But obviously it was all written, so it's just all the like polishing and covers and editing and stuff like that.
Wow, Mike, taking you a long time to get 5 books. You did it in a year. Falling down, man.
Yeah, that's why I'm slowing down, because it's expensive. I mean, my cover artist is a really good friend. She lives up in Scotland.
They do really nice work, by the way. The covers on your books are really nice.
Honestly, Sophie, she does an amazing job every time. She is on maternity leave because she just had a baby a week ago. But otherwise, she is on Instagram. So I usually post about her whenever I talk about my covers.
So does she do that for a job? Like if Mike or I were to call her up and say, "Hey, we'd like a book cover,"
yeah. I think she'll be on maternity leave until the new year, but from then on, yeah, she'll be doing that.
What's her name so people can look her up?
She is. I don't know how I can type this onto YouTube, but it's Lila B Books. On Instagram, she's called Lila B Books, and then I think it's quiet right now because new baby, but otherwise she's able to be contacted through there. She helps me with all the blurbs for each book as well, because she is I don't know, you just throw random facts about the book at her and she will give you a blurb back that's perfect. She's really good.
Wow.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want.
I think she eventually wants to do the whole thing. She's just finished a master's in creative writing. Yeah.
So, and if we contact her, tell her that we want the Natalie Kelda discount.
I'm not sure you can do that. What I do, she writes as well, and what we do is we do a little bit of a swap. So I pay a little bit for the covers, but then I do very line by line critiques of her books and stories.
Okay. Yeah. So we can ask for it, but we're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But still say I sent you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, and she is on X.
I don't think she uses her Twitter account, but she does use her Instagram.
Yeah, she's on Twitter, so there it is. All right. And you know what? We will do this as well here. Hold on one second.
So
go ahead, Mike. I'm doing something stupid here.
Okay.
Not stupid at all.
When did you start writing your historical fiction?
Ooh, that's actually an interesting question, because I studied archaeology in Denmark a long time ago. I think in 2012. Yeah, I think in 2012, and I did 2 years, and I really I burned out so bad. Oh, thank you. So university in Denmark is very different, because I've studied here in the UK now, so I can sort of compare. So I did archaeology for 2 years in Denmark. It was a 4-year degree, but university is free in Denmark. You get paid to study, which means it's Scandinavia. We pay a lot in tax, but it's worth it. So basically, it's free to study. You get £500. I'm not sure what that is in dollars, but around £500 a month while you study full time. But the thing is with that is they expect you to treat it more seriously than any job. like it's really tough. The first year they make extra tough because they want you to drop out if you're not serious, because obviously it costs money for the state. And that just, it killed me. I managed to finish the second year, but only just. I had good sort of, I think I got A across the board, so I did really well, but it completely killed me mentally. So I ended up, originally I took a break. I never went back, but I took a break to go to Australia. So I moved down there, and I moved to Canada, moved back to Australia. I traveled around basically for 4 years. I couldn't write. I had like all my creativity had died because I'd been so burned out from university. And then when I was at the tail end of living in Australia and my second visa was running out and I wouldn't be able to stay, I don't know, something just sort of switched for me. And I felt creative again. So I went to the local library, which was like 100 kilometers away. I drove in, got all the books on Vikings out that they had, which was like 5. They hardly had anything, but I had no internet because I was living in the outback. So I took all those books out, and then I sat down with the first, I think I'd written like 20,000 words of a story before I burned out. And then I finished it in like a few months. And that was like the first proper historical fiction that I wrote, which I think I'm going to rewrite it into English, because that's a really, it's close to my heart, of course, because it's the first story I wrote after a 4-year hiatus. But yeah, so historical fiction was actually my way back into writing, in a way, and then I haven't stopped since. Yeah.
So do you read a lot of fantasy books that are Viking inspired, and what are your thoughts on them if you do?
I have. Some of them are good, some of them are, it's very tricky because I enjoy it, but also a lot of the time, most of the time, to be honest, if the author isn't sort of ingrained properly in the culture, you can tell that they've read translations of stuff which are bad translations. Most English translations are terrible. If you speak any of the Scandinavian languages or speak Icelandic or Faroe Island, if you speak any of those languages, you can read the old prose eddas and that you can read that in the original because it's still very, very close. And when you read it, know what it means in modern Scandinavian, and then read the English translations, they fall really flat. There's a lot of nuance that's lost, and you notice that when you read stuff from people that just it's not anyone's fault. It's just you can't really, unless you learn the language, you can't really properly understand, I think. And there's a lot of Viking culture that I think is misunderstood, like because we have these sort of, the Viking series outlooks on it, and I mean that's just fantasy. That whole series is complete bollocks. It's fun to watch, but it's just completely, I mean, I think it's one of the towns called Kattegat, which is like a sound in the Baltic Sea. It's just really weird. Whereas like there's loads of, they could have just called it something that actually still exists, like Roskilde still exists. It existed back then. They could just have called it any of the names that our towns are called today.
Well, that's what happens when you don't have, higher education paid for, is you get shoddy work like that.
I guess so, yeah. I mean, it's just I usually really enjoy it, but you can tell there's a couple of writers that do really well. I really enjoyed Giles Christian. Anything he writes is brilliant, and also Theodor Brunn. Like his stuff is Viking inspired fantasy, like proper fantasy, and it's so much fun. So yeah, some of it is really good, but a lot of it is just, and it's the problem I have with pretty much all Viking fiction that I read is all male focused. If there is a woman, she seems nothing like how a woman would be, basically, and it's all fart jokes and stuff like that. And I don't think that's what it would be like. Yeah, so I think
Our jokes only take you so far.
I just think we need more sort of female Viking fiction where it doesn't revolve around her having to like marry a man or run after a man, or it's always the romance is always centered and it's all about like her relationship to a man instead of just being about her. So that's my Viking story is all more about like the women and maybe about the kids as well, but like it's more about the women female interactions in the society, and not so much like going out and raiding and doing all the cool stuff, but doing all the cool stuff at home instead. Yeah.
So who was the author who you said did it really well?
Giles Christian. So I think he's doing some Arthur-inspired stuff at the moment, but he's done some really good Viking books. And Theodor Brun, Brun, he does really cool. It's set. I think it's set like in. It seems like it's set in Sweden, but it's fantasy, and it seems very much like it's Viking, and then it just goes like completely wild, and it's really fun. So those are the ones where I read it and like enjoyed it enough to continue reading all the rest of the series. Yeah.
So why are your main characters depressed and anxious?
Well, I guess it's
saying that, everybody. That's actually on her Twitter profile. So
yes, yeah, it does say that. It's just sort of it's been carrying themes. I think I'm not diagnosed, but I'm likely autistic. Like my dad's autistic, very autistic. My mom probably is. She has some very particular things about everything. And I think it's just comorbidities that when you're slightly neurodivergent in one way or another, you tend to also have anxiety and depression. So it's stuff I've had to deal with my whole life, like even from I was quite young. Sort of the whole not fitting in and never feeling like, I mean, when I was a kid, I was convinced that I had been born in the wrong body. I thought I should have been born as like a wolf. Like I didn't think I should have been a human for many years. So I think that sort of when you always feel out of place, that leaves you quite anxious because you never feel like there's anywhere that's right for you. I mean, I've traveled the whole world, and it's just you can't run away from it. No, I haven't been. I think I don't know if there's any lizard people in Theodor Brun's stuff. There might be. I might forget about it. He has some wacky creatures for sure. So yeah, it might be.
have you considered running with that whole I should be in the body of a wolf thing and doing a story with the main character's a druid or something and learns to actually transform himself into a wolf?
I think one of the first, actually maybe that was the first, one of the first full-length novels I wrote was sort of like that. I don't think I've really touched it since. I probably should. It would be a fun story.
Areas you're the odd part, a cat with a wolf.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories when I was a kid, and I read it over and over and over and over. It was about a girl that could transform into different animals. Oh, thank you. And yeah, I don't know why I've not really. I dream quite often about like shape shifting and stuff like that, but I don't think I really write about it. I don't know if it's, even though I write really personal things with all the depression and anxiety and some of like the really dark themes, but I think maybe the shape shifting is almost too personal for me. So I haven't really haven't delved into it, but I probably will one day. It's not yet. I think it's not
Well,
ready.
it sounds like you have plenty of things left to publish that you don't need to jump right on that. So.
Oh yeah, I have so much. Like, I had a really cool dream. I went to Wales with my mom in April, I think it was, and I had a really weird dream. And I woke up in the middle of the night and started typing on my phone because I was like, I need to write this down. And my mom thought I was sick. She was like, "Oh my god, you need water. What do you need?" She was freaking out, and so I sort of explained, I'm typing, I'm fine. And I ended up, I wrote that. That's a new, guess, I don't know if it's a novella or a novel because it's 45,000 words. Yeah, so it's like right in between.
So very close.
You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, so I wrote that, and I wrote another. Yeah, so I've written 2 books this year, and then I've just finished another short story today. And there's too much. Like, I don't know how I can ever publish all of it. There's a lot of stuff that I just keep for myself as well. Yeah.
So you've traveled in Canada and Australia, 2 of the largest, emptiest countries in the world.
Yeah.
And now you live in a place
The fewer people, the better. Like, the fewer people, the better. I love it. I absolutely love it.
But now you live in a place where most people, if the drive is more than 20 miles, they think it's just a chore.
Yeah. But the thing is, it is. Because there's so much traffic here because there's too many people.
Right.
Going 20 miles is going to take you forever. Like, I don't drive to my work and it's only 40 miles away because it is 3 times faster to take the train.
Well, yeah, but you also have the option.
If there's no traffic, it's the same time as taking the train, but because of the traffic, it takes 3 times longer. So I've driven actually all around Australia and down the middle. So I've driven really long distances. I've been on the longest straight stretch of road in the world and stuff like that. But it's different because there's hardly any traffic. So you're just going. But here you're trying to drive into Manchester and you're going to be stuck in traffic for at least an hour.
Oh yeah. Yeah. In the States, if you can find a train to where you're trying to go to, it will take 2 to 3 times as long as driving.
Yeah.
I mean, to get from where Mike is in Richmond up to DC, which is a drive of 3 or 4 hours.
It should be 2 if there wasn't traffic, so 3 to 3.5.
But the train takes 5.
Oh my god!
Right? And I can drive from where I am to damn near Canada in 13 hours, but the train would take over 24.
Yeah, I think it's just the infrastructure that's different, isn't it? In Europe, like trains are just, I mean, they get delayed sometimes, but it's honestly not that bad. Even if when they're delayed, it's usually quicker than driving. Where in the US, it's just there's no point, and it's the same in Canada. You don't take the train anywhere unless you live in, like I lived in downtown Toronto at one point, and obviously you just took the tram or whatever. But when I lived in BC, like there was no public transport. You would have to drive if you needed to get anything. So
how did you end up in Yorkshire?
So
how did you end up in Yorkshire of all places?
I went to Manchester to study because I wanted to study wildlife biology.
Okay.
So I was really lucky. They took me in. I didn't actually have any of the qualifications because the Danish qualifications look completely different. But because I worked at a wildlife sanctuary in Canada, they took me in based on experience. Yeah.
Nice.
And then, I got a job at a museum and then just never left.
And that's where you work now?
Yeah. I work, Big museum full of dinosaurs and frogs and all sorts of cool things.
I have to ask, what museum?
It's called Manchester Museum.
Oh, okay.
You got really creative with the name.
Yes, very creative. I guess I think it must have been the original ones. It was probably like some rich guy that made it. It's been there since 1886, I think. At least that's when the building. Like my office is on the top floor of a really old building, so it's very special. It's very special.
So, did you know that William Smithson, who was British, donated his fortune to the United States because they were a young and upcoming country, and that's where all the Smithsonian museums come from now. Is from
Oh no, I didn't realize that. I assumed it was a person, but yeah.
yeah. So he was British, and he liked that young upstart country. So he donated the money, and then they've always been free ever since then for all the Smithsonian museums. So
I see. We're free museum as well.
nice.
Yeah, I mean we're university museum, so I think that's probably the only reason we can sort of, because I work in the shop, in the office part of the shop, but in the shop, and it can't run around. Like we're trying to peddle everything, but it can't run around without the money from art funds and stuff like that. Yeah.
Oh, so I would ask what's next, but I mean, it's a whole smorgasbord of answers.
Just reach into your desk and see what one you pull out. It's like, we'll publish this one next. Or do you have more planning than that
I can
involved?
easily do that. I think I have at least 6 or 7 books that are just sitting, which I just need to find time and money and.
That's like the best possible problem a writer could have.
It's a nice problem. Yeah, it's a nice problem.
And they're finished books, mostly.
Mostly, yeah, I think.
So it's not like Sebastian on here last night, who has like 12 partially finished books lying around.
No. I mean, they're fully drafted, and some of them are also edited. So it's probably there's probably 5 books that are fully edited as well. So they're just sitting there.
Wow.
And then I still sort of have. I don't know, because I'm scared about Patreon, because I would have to do something on a schedule. I don't like schedules.
How about Kickstarter? It's like, hey, I have these 5 books that are ready to go. I just need to get covers.
Yeah, I have thought about that. I'm scared about the workload, because I got COVID 2.5 years ago, and then I caught long COVID, and now I've got fibromyalgia. So all the reenactment and martial arts and going for runs every day and stuff, that's pretty much non-existent, because I don't really have energy. I'm in a lot of pain all the time, so I'm really scared about anything where I promise to do stuff in case my health crashes, because it goes up and down a lot. I would love to do a Kickstarter. Probably the one thing I would love to do, but I know they don't do well on Kickstarters, is for audiobooks, because I almost solely read audiobooks at the moment, and I would love to have my books in audio as well. But I know they don't usually do well on Kickstarter. They never make the money back, so it's just sort of But yeah, maybe I should do that for the final 4 books in the series.
You can do Brandon Sanderson, and 5 books. I wrote them because I was bored.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what I do. I write on my commute, because I take the train into the office, and it's a great way to get a couple 1,000 or 2,000 words down every day. Yeah.
You have little tables in the train or something?
We do, but the tables are too tall. They hurt my arms, so I have to just sit like a little gremlin, hunched over my laptop. Yeah. Yeah.
Oof.
Mike, do you have a stupid question?
Always. Let's see. So I highlighted some of the ones I thought might be interesting.
I don't know if you're familiar with this, Natalie, but Mike has a list on an Excel spreadsheet, no less, of questions.
Oh, I see. I have watched several of your episodes, but usually in the background, so I might not have.
Jump in the chat. We're all friends here. It's all good.
Okay, so for this one, you're going to have to pick one of your main characters to answer this.
Okay.
So just have that person in mind.
The
Two-part question.
ancient-
What is your favorite holiday and why? And how would the presence of your main character change that holiday for you?
Wait, so what my favorite holiday is and how
And if your
if
main
the main
character
was with me.
manifested there at this holiday, how would it change?
Oh God. I was thinking of Merlin because debut novel and all that, but he's a bit of a stick in the mud. I think he wouldn't like any of my holiday ideas because I would like something where we are walking and like doing stuff, and he would hate that. He would hate anything with hiking.
So it would be
Anything-
like having Mike there.
Yes.
he would just be moaning the whole time and be like, "When are we going back to the pub?" Yeah. It would be nice once we got to the pub, but yeah, he would probably hate every minute of it otherwise. Being out in the nature and that, he'll be scared of everything, I think.
So I have a follow-up question because I've
Okay,
always
the first one.
What? Oh, yes. What is your favorite holiday? You have to tell us that.
Oh, basically, yeah, just anything where I'm out in nature. I love hiking, so if I feel fresh enough to do that, hiking. I moved out to Yorkshire to be in the hills because I'm just near the Peak District, which is a big national park.
Yep.
So yeah, anything out on the moors, just the less like if there's no people, that's just brilliant. Just anything like that.
Have you thought of moving to Suffolk?
To Suffolk. Oh
Suffolk.
God, that's in the
There's-
south.
Not a lot of people in Suffolk.
It's in the south. I don't think I could do that. Apparently
It's
I
in
sound.
Langley. It's not
north.
really south. It's kind of mid.
It's the south.
Alright.
I've been up here too long, so like now there's like a hard line just around Birmingham, and anything south is south. Yeah,
Your
it's
country's
so
as big as a
bad. Like I don't know if you can tell, but I just went to Scotland last week, and everyone thought I was from Yorkshire and was really confused when I said that's my dad to the guy with really strong Danish accent, because they were all convinced that I had to like be from Yorkshire.
So I have a question to ask you that Rose probably going to make fun of me.
That
But-
wouldn't be the first time.
No, it's daily. So I've never been to England. I would love to go.
Yeah.
And I do. How often does one go to the pub? And what I don't understand, because for me it's going to a bar, and I would never ever do that. Never.
You
And
never
so-
go to a bar?
God no. People there, loud music. They shout. They're drunk. Ooh, no, nothing about that sounds good.
Take
I mean-
it away, Natalie. I'm not going to do
There
this.
will be music and it will be loud, or maybe there's just going to be footy, like football. Sorry, sometimes I speak Australian. Sometimes there'll be football on the TV, which people will definitely be shouting at. But the pub is something you can go any day of the week. Like if you go on a Tuesday afternoon, it's going to be super busy. Like it's always busy, pretty much. So you'll go after work for like a pint or half pint with friends, and you'll just sit and chat. You might have a little bit of chips or crisps, which is what you call chips. French fries and chips, I guess. And just yeah, you go to the pub every day if you can afford it. Like I don't go very often because pints are not cheap anymore. But yeah, you can go anytime you want, and it's just a little get together. It's not really, unless you go on a Friday or a Saturday. Like don't go those days because someone will be puking in the corner. But if you go during the week, it's just really nice and chill. And if it's sunny like today, I bet you every single pub is like rammed. People will be sitting outside in beer gardens, and they'll just be having a good time. It's just a way to get together and socialize. Yeah.
I want to go back again.
So
Thanks,
I
Mike.
always had in my head, I always had it that when you went in there, there'd be three old guys sitting at the corner complaining about something, and the place would be empty.
There usually is. Yeah.
See, I would like to go join them. That would be my people.
But I mean, you can do that. Like if we've had a bad week at work, sometimes we'll go to the pub and we'll just sit with our beer and we'll just be like slagging off everyone at work, and then you got it out of your system, and then you go home and you're happy. Yeah.
And pub food is very good. I don't care what anybody says about English food. Pub food is great.
Like, I think the reason English food is sort of slagged off is because a lot of the time it's quite bland. Like, they don't put a lot of spice on it. But if you know what you're expecting to get, like for English food, if you get even just fish and chips, like it's really nice. It's very sort of homey, the food that you get at a pub. Yeah.
I always heard it say the British Empire conquered all the lands with spices, so they could therefore use none of them in their cooking.
That's right.
It's true. It's true, to be honest. Like
that is my brother, by the way, and it is very true.
It is. Those are my spirit animals. Statler and Waldorf. I don't know. Are you familiar with Statler and Waldorf?
I don't think so. I mean, Waldorf in Danish is a salad, but
No. It's from the Muppet Show.
oh, I see. Yeah.
The two old guys up in the balcony who would always like make fun of the rest of the cast.
And
Yeah.
heckle.
The two grumpy old men, the two curmudgeons up in the. I think that's.
Yeah. I mean, that would fit in a pub, to be perfectly honest.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But like British people in general, that's one thing that just brilliant at is whinging, like complaining. They are so good at complaining and moaning.
And standing in line.
Everything. Yeah, it's something I sometimes catch myself falling into because I've been here for 8 years now, and it definitely you get so used to just going with the flow and just complaining about everything. Yeah.
So, according to Aaron, I have to learn how to play dominoes now before I move to England.
They play dominoes a lot in England at pubs. Is that a thing now?
I don't know. I don't know how to play domino, to be honest, but I think maybe my friends are too young.
Yeah. Oh. All right. Anything else, Natalie? Do you have a copy of your latest book that you want to hold up and
Oh yes.
with no thought given, just tell people to buy your book.
Yeah, so I've got 4 books out. This one is the one that came out in April under Far Galaxian Skies. So this one, it is still in the same universe. It's all called Inner Universe, but my series is interconnected. So you don't have to read all of them in a row. You can easily start with this one. It's written so you can start with this one. The main character, Balfour, it's a very dark story. So definitely for anyone that has sort of triggers, check my website. There's a little thing you can click and the trigger warnings will pop out for you. So you don't have to click it if you don't need it. But it's a quite dark story in some points because of how his mental health is. But yeah, it's written so you don't have to read the rest of it. You can just start here if you want to. And that's the first one in the trilogy. So it will feel like there's more to come by the end of it because there is more to come.
And
the next book will be out in October.
The trigger warnings, I did look at that on your webpage, and those are a great selling point for your book. I saw the trigger warnings and said, "Oh yes, please."
Yeah,
I would like to read this.
For some people, it will help them say, "Oh, I want to read it," or for other people, for myself, I can read pretty much anything, but sometimes I need to sort of mentally prepare so I'm in the right mindset to go into something. And yeah, so it's just in case people want it, and then if they don't want it, they can ignore it. Yeah, so it is dark fantasy, I think, what I write, which is also why I don't know what to do with this story that I wrote earlier this year, the novel thing, because it's very cozy and whimsical. So it doesn't fit my brand at all, but it's a really fun story about a water nymph going to a Edwardian spa for treatment because she's got chronic health issues. So yeah, I would love to publish that as well at some point.
An Edwardian spa, that's where they like give you a cigarette at the door, right? To help kind of clear the lungs.
They probably did. And it was back when they had just figured out that drinking water was a good idea, but they still had lead in all the water. So
Right. Drinking water is a good idea, just not this water.
Yes.
Nothing here.
Yeah.
All right. So which one, last question for me, which one of your books is your favorite?
The next one that comes out, I think.
Oh, that's a cop-out, but a great answer.
I know it's a cop-out, but it's the longest one in the series. I couldn't cut it down, so it ended up being 122K.
Okay.
And it's the middle of the trilogy, so it's got probably the most hard-hitting. Like, I've cried the most editing that book because we lose some characters, and I'm still a little bit mad at myself for killing them off, but it had to happen. And it's just, I think it's the relationships, like all the friendships and the found family, the way they feel very realistic to me, like they feel real to me. And I hope readers will think the same, basically. But yeah, it's a really good book, that next one, Robblesworth McGrath. That's out in October.
Awesome.
So Natalie, I will tell you, I have my hard and fast rule that I don't read books that are over 500 pages because they just need an editor.
I don't think any of them are over 500, you know.
So I'm thinking 122 should be right at about 500. So that means that all of your books are readable by me.
471 is this one, and that's the longest of the ones I have here.
So you are golden. You've written appropriate books, unlike one of the Tims in our chats.
I do my best because I mean, some stories do need to be long, but a lot of stories, I think it's mostly a problem for, I notice in like really big traditionally published authors, where as their career goes on, it's like, are the editors scared? Like, do they not dare to say you need to cut this? Because I feel like quite often their books just bloat and they're not better for it. Yeah, I haven't noticed it as much in self-published books, but yeah, a lot of the really big name authors, they write too long books, and it's just a lot of hot air, a lot of it.
Timothy Wolf has a good question for you.
Oh, you know, the funny thing is, this whole series, the first 7 books, were written in the first person, and all my beta readers hated. Well, I think they mostly hated Merlin because he's very depressed, and when you're in someone's head and they're just depressed and miserable all the time, is really hard going. So I actually rewrote everything, those first 7 books, to be in third person, close. Yeah, imagine that.
Like an insane amount of work.
750K, I think, rewritten. Yeah, but they're much better for it. That Water Nymph book that I mentioned, the Edwardian Spa one, that is written in first person, and I think it's going to stay that way because it feels right. It feels like she's telling her story about what happened when she fell ill and became chronically ill. Yeah.
I agree with
well, sometimes you have to listen to the people giving you beta reads, and if they're all saying sometimes if they're all saying the same thing, they're probably right. There are other times where I'm like, no, go to hell, I'm not doing that thing. But I mean, one of my beta readers hated Merlin so much she hoped that he was going to die by the end. Spoiler, he doesn't, but yeah, she couldn't stand him. But I didn't want to change him too much because I wanted to portray depression realistically as well. Yeah.
Hey, you know, Eeyore is one of the best loved of the 100 Acre Woods, and that dude is chronic.
Oh God, I feel so bad for him. He just needs a big hug. He probably wouldn't like it, to be honest, but he just needs a big hug.
Don't know what you're doing. You need to stop now. All right, I'm done.
Okay, Natalie, I always like to ask, is there any question that we should have asked you that we did not because we did not come prepared?
Oh God, no, you were really well prepared.
Oh, no, we never prepare. We're famous for that.
Spread that around.
Oh no, I think you were doing great. I feel like it's just been me chatting, and I've not had. I should have prepared.
Perfect interview for us.
But I've not had a thought to do that. I took a nap instead of preparing myself.
See, and that's the proper way to prepare for a ball chat.
That's the best thing to do. I'm going out of my credit.
Yeah. Barry did it the other way around. So he's napping now. He's napping now. He's preparing too late.
Well, he was chattering at the window for all of 3 minutes, so he's probably just knackered.
Yeah. It's really tough to shout at the birds.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go lie down, take a nap, and prepare my next fantasy novel that I'm going to write because this is the way we do it now. This is my excuse. But thank you, Natalie, for being on the show. Is quite the
thank you so much for having me.
I took notes. We talked about Vikings, clotted cream, sci fantasy, British weather, shape shifting, and dreaming. Yes. So I don't know that we've had another interview that covered all those topics. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
All right. Thanks, Natalie. And thanks, everybody, for showing up on a Saturday. Appreciate it.